This video is going to be my third preview of the Ravens' trip to Buffalo to take on the Bills in the AFC divisional round, where I focus on the matchup between the Ravens' offense and the Bills' defense. One that is a base nickel defense. If you watched any of my content so far this week, this is actually the second film study that I've done on the Bills' defense. Maybe my last, perhaps a short one scheduled for Friday morning, but run out of time to get any content out talking about the Bills' offense. I'm going to focus on one of the principles, I guess the second and third, that I think the Ravens and Todd Monken should try to address and probably have a plan for, and that's attacking the Bills' defense in a horizontal manner, creating horizontal conflict either right and left, and they can certainly do that with Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, and the option game. I'm not really going to focus on that. I think I've covered the option game really probably too much in the last 4 or 5, 6 weeks. It's one of the things that I have some familiarity with from a background standpoint, experience coaching either on the offensive side or against it, trying to stop the option. And so I think I've probably beat that horse pretty badly on my channel. If you're interested in it, first of all, let me know in the comment section, and maybe I can link up some of those videos for you to check out the Ravens option concepts and how they'll satisfy the need to create horizontal conflict for this defense. But I'm talking about jet sweeps, hide concepts, plays where Lamar Jackson could give it to a guy running a sweep path or keep it and run off tackle, essentially QB power or maybe quarterback counter, or what a lot of people call bash. And if you look at the way that a lot of other teams have attacked the Bills, specifically the Chiefs and the Rams, they have created horizontal conflict, especially in certain parts of the field, whether it's against the nickel defense for the Bills or against what some would call their base 4-3. I will not be referring to their 4-3 as their base look. It is their changeup. Their base defense is a nickel front, where Taron Johnson is the nickel DB, the fifth guy in their 4-2-5. They major in that, in my opinion. Number one. Number two, a couple of things they don't do to that. Now, you do have a 3-by-1 set here against the Chiefs. And backside, you've got what appears to be a tight end. I think it's Travis Kelce. This is a hide concept across the field, across the back of the offensive line, from the field into the boundary, really stressing the boundary side inside linebacker from a run pass standpoint and a reaction standpoint. You can see that I think it's Damar Hamlin pointing and calling out Worthy crossing the formation. It's really an illustration of a little bit of a lack of discipline by a guy 42 who is not one of their starters when Matt Milano's healthy. But come on, it's not a tight end here. It's Xavier Worthy. So whether you're going to cross-read that, which a lot of NFL teams refuse to do, or just recognize, hey, it's a receiver to this multiple things to try to attack horizontally. And when I say create horizontal conflict, what I mean is any kind of conflict that goes in one direction with a running back or a receiver or a quarterback, and then something to exploit it going in the opposite direction. I think that we should see point of what they do with their safeties when they're in a too high alignment. They do roll down at times, but they don't roll down to force. They roll down to occupy. And what I mean by that is it'll be a post-snap roll or spin or movement by a safety to create a one-high look, get someone down into the curl flat or hook to curl area to play cover three. But they rarely roll those guys down to really force, get them up involved at the line of scrimmage. I think that's just one of the principles of their defense, and in my opinion, it's been one of the principles of their defense since 2019 and 2020, when the Ravens first started to match up with them in the playoff or in the regular season in 2019, and then the playoffs in 2020. In consecutive years, really balanced competitive matchups against a team that wants to stay in a too high look pre-snap as much as possible. And certainly the Ravens could try to punish that in the option game. I'm showing you concepts that other teams have put on film to attack it, including the jet sweep. So the nickel defender is to the field, is Taron Johnson. And there's the horizontal conflict that's been created. I've actually talked about this play defensive end. I think that's a key for this Ravens team, be able to get things done without having to block. Stanley and Rosengarten do not have to deal with those guys in a man-to-man situation on some of these run concepts. We're talking about this D end right here. But we can still create conflict by the jet motion, which was already handed off, and the running back going in this one player going in one direction and another guy going in the opposite direction. The big one for the Ravens in 2024, obviously, is the jet dive. Off of the jet sweep action with the dive by Derrick Henry back against the grain. So this is a jet sweep for Puka Nacua, and it's easy. I mean, they ran this, I think, 4 times in this game, really shredded the Bills' defense. The only guy who's there to make the play is the defensive end. If that defensive end is reading his keys, then he's got a tackle stepping down that he's got to respond to. If on the jet sweep action, the defensive end is going to step up field and tackle the jet guy, well, what does that open up? The jet dive. Derrick Henry going in the opposite direction and then winding it or cutting it back downhill because this defensive end has moved himself too far upfield. Essentially, you're talking about an option concept, even though it's a predetermined handoff to the jet sweep guy. In this case, it's Puka Nacua, one of these handoffs. The only difference is they're not going to be able to generate, they're not going to be able to get to fourth gear here in this space here, which is what you need to be able to get around this defensive end. Essentially, you couldn't run this with Pat Ricard. We'll start there. You couldn't run this with Charlie Kolar. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, I mean, maybe, but it's still going to be difficult once you get the handoff in this area here to navigate an NFL defensive end unless it's absolutely Derrick Henry in the backfield after he has had a big run. And so what I mean by that is you've set him up with Henry and then run the jet sweep opposite. Because Zay Flowers is not here, presumably going to be able to play, this may be something. I showed this one in another video as well, but I think it also illustrates the nature of what I'm talking about, the horizontal conflict. Jet motion by Cooper Kupp. I don't think they're ever going to hand that off down there to the single receiver side. And the pitch, only how effective it was for the Rams, but look at where they're using it. They're not using it at the 50-yard line. They weren't using it at the 35. They're using it to score. Using it when they're down here and it's compressed space. Where are they attacking when the space is compressed, when there's less room to deal with? They're attacking horizontally. I'm not saying it's a weakness of the Bills' defense. It's a relative weakness, in my opinion. This is a great concept. The Ravens actually run this. I think you should look for this. I mean, the Ravens run this blocking scheme whereby because we know the Bills are going to be in a four-man front, defensive ends, 2D tackles, regardless of whether we're one or three to the play side, we know they're going to be in a four-man front, so we know that defensive end has to be lined up inside shade of that receiver. Pin down block. For us, it could be a tight end executing that block. Point is someone who can pin down on the defensive end, help us get the edge in the opposite direction that the jet motion or jet sweep is threatening. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. It's horizontal conflict. I think that the Ravens, am I saying the Ravens can't line up in heavy personnel and run it right at them? No. They certainly will try to do that, and it could be very effective. Am I saying they're not going to run the option? No. These are the things I'm choosing to focus on because it seems to me that other NFL offenses, other high-quality NFL offensive staffs are giving us an indication, clues, if you will. Hey, here's what we saw on film. Maybe you could attack them in this way as well. Really going to focus on the Rams here with this concept. Now, look, the Rams under center, extremely predictable. It's either run or it's play action pass. We know that. We played them last year. I also was fortunate enough to see them play the Lions twice last season, and then also, once last season in the playoffs, and then week one this year, 2024, which at this point seems like 2023. So maybe that's why I thought that. But a couple of things. Ball on the left hash, their 4-2-5 structure. That is Taron Johnson, the nickel defender spot shadowed. You have two inside linebackers here, 43 and 58, and they're going to flow with the running back to the downside of the screen. And the key is that you get someone to deal with the defensive end. Because these guys, the nickel defender, is very rarely going to attack on run away against the boot. I don't want to use the word passive, but it is a more conservative approach to dealing with these things as long as you get the defensive end blocked with some type of pin down, someone in outside leverage who's able to occupy that guy, give your quarterback a ton of space. And you can see Taron Johnson trying to respond, get underneath here. Presumably, you've got flood concept coming from the backside. It's a great concept, if you ask me, to attack in a half field, moving not just with the running back, but moving with the offensive lineman, matching their read, matching their pace, if you will, if they see a particular formation. And in fact, the Ravens, when we're under center and it's one running back in the backfield, this play action boot is generally those are the indicators when we run the play action boot back to our right-hand side. It wasn't successful in every iteration, mind you, number one. Number two, you have some interesting markers here with the Bills defense when they break their too high structure. I think they're less effective breaking their too high structure. It doesn't mean they won't do it in Sunday's game. It doesn't mean they won't be effective at it. It just on my film study, my analysis is that when they're in their too high structure, they react better as a safety tandem. When they have help to their inside, conceptually, I would almost say it's like when a team takes one of their inside linebackers and drops him down and creates that kind of like 5-1 look, stresses the lone Mike inside linebacker incredibly from a horizontal standpoint. And in my opinion, when you get the Bills away from their too high safety structure, their reactions are less precise. They're less clean cut because they're not used to being in this position as often. The Ravens have an opportunity to force them to be in those situations. As some of this film is running through, looks a great throw by Matt Stafford, right? But also notice that, as I said earlier, every time you're going to have a 4-down lineman look. Occasionally against heavy personnel groups, they'll bring in 42 along with 58 and 43. And 42 will drop down and play the 9 technique, and they'll kick these defensive tackles and defensive ends down away from that edge defender hybrid Sam linebacker out of a 4-3 look. Cooper Kupp responsible for pinning down on the edge defender. You can see his alignment is measured. It's precise, such that he's got an angle, a side. He can lose to the inside, but he cannot lose to the outside. He can't let Von Miller get out here. That's why Cooper Kupp, lined up to the outside to give Matt Stafford an opportunity to throw the football. Damar Hamlin busting out there to try to get underneath of that route by Puka Nacua. It's a classic concept, right? You've got stretch, zone, threatening to that side, quarterback booting in the Bills team. But I definitely think, and I know that Todd Monken and those guys have looked at what other teams use to attack them and said, hey, why don't we try to recreate some of that as well? Another one high safety look here. This one, I believe, is going to end up being incomplete, but it's a play action boot. One more time, Kupp motioning left to right for the offense. Play action, a quick play action, not a high quality one, don't get me wrong. And this time you do have a safety who's coming downhill to attack. And so he will play a role here in affecting the amount of time that Stafford has to throw the ball. Stafford kind of fading on this one and just doesn't get as much on it. Why is he fading? Because he recognizes there's a safety here and he doesn't have as much time to set his feet and bang forward to be able to throw this. And I'll give you the end zone angle. You can see what I mean. As he throws this, he's kind of flipping it and the ball dies with about 15 seconds left. Nose ends up pointing down quickly. Incomplete pass. Great job, I think, by 47 to get his hands on the football. One more time from the end zone angle, and then we're done with play action boot stuff. And I'll give you some Ravens film from the first game against the Bills that I think kind of proves how we're going to see Todd Monken and those guys attack this Bills defense. I think the Bills defense is going to play really well. Slow down the run the whole game. I don't think so. But if they do, I think it'll be in the first quarter and a half. Maybe if the Ravens are look, if we come out there and we get a score on the first possession and it happens quick, then that's fantastic. I just think in front of their home crowd and the level of preparedness and faith that they have in their scheme, that they're going to come out as ready as possible on the first possession, maybe even the first 2 or 3. A little bit more anomalous boot concept here. This is jumbo personnel grouping. Jumbo 13 for the Lions. So you've got a 6th offensive lineman and then 2 actual tight ends. Now that offensive lineman, Dan Skipper, is eligible. Counter scheme by the Lions, which I think is really well designed. It's a slower developing run play. So they're trying to get these guys at the second level occupied for longer because the run play, the run act is going to be number 24. He's consistently lined up to the side of a jumbo tight end, a 6th offensive lineman. Talking about right here. Basically, if you add an offensive lineman to the box, conceptually the Bills add him to the box along with whatever their normal run fits are. And you can see there's inside linebackers here and here, and what I believe is a hybrid Sam, inside linebacker, outside linebacker, who can drop down to play an edge defender position if they need him to. Early on, stopping the run, safeties getting involved. It wouldn't surprise me to see Todd Monken go play action early. Let's focus on the ways that the Ravens actually did attack in the Week 4 game. I recognize that there was players for the Bills who were out, fine. I'm talking about the structure of their defense. When they are a too high safety team, even when, like in this position here, we've got 22 personnel on the field. So that's Pat Ricard. You've got a tight end up here, tight end down here. We're a 22 personnel group right now on the field. But from a formation standpoint, it's not a tightly aligned formation. We do have a pro group here. This jet sweep look, or fast sweep, if you will, into the boundary is something that Todd Monk has run basically since Georgia, and it makes it look like it's going to be sweep into the boundary, likely pinning, Ricard looping out. The only difference is this is the key breaker here for you. If it's going to be a sweep to Zay Flowers, then Justice Hill is going to lead outside as well. We're going to try to get numbers into the boundary. As an aside, the Bills are in their 4-3 personnel here. I believe number 32 is the third inside linebacker added to the fit. And when I say hybrid guy, these are not hybrid inside linebacker, outside linebacker guys. They're just inside linebackers. This 32 here, which I believe will be 42 generally, is going to be their hybrid guy against 22 personnel group or even jumbo stuff. There's the defensive end that would be the read man if it was fast sweep or if it was quarterback power read. So what I mean by quarterback power read is everyone here blocking power, guard pulling, running back leading, just like I described, and Lamar and the motion man having a mesh action here while Lamar reads that defensive end. And Lamar either gives it when we have numbers to the boundary, or he should at least, or keeps it. Now, that's not the play here. That's the setup. That's the jab, or the right cross, if you will. This is the left hook. Keeping it and coming back against the grain. Again, horizontal conflict. Moving right to left for our offense with the motion, especially with someone like Zay Flowers. Justice Hill, tremendous speed and acceleration, outrunning them to the field in the other direction. I think that as good a head coach as they have, and as smart as they are on defense, the more we get them into this personnel look, 4-3, and get Taron Johnson off the field, the better we are. I think he's a spectacular football player. I think Taron Johnson probably starts in a nickel personnel group for almost every team in the NFL. He's that good. He's great, very good in coverage, great tackler, very aggressive. I understand he's had injury problems this year. I think he missed 4 games earlier in the season and had an injury last week with his neck. Hopefully he's okay. I enjoy watching them play football, not during weeks like this when they play the Baltimore Ravens. In my opinion, the more we can get him off the field and get a third inside linebacker, that's Sam, onto the field to attack, the better off we'll be. Another play that attacks horizontally from week 4. This is 21 personnel, so you've got Henry and Ricard on the field at the same time, along with Isaiah Likely. Here, in my opinion, 21 personnel is going to be one of the cruxes of the game. They're going to respond with their nickel. They're not going to go 4-3 personnel against 21 because they recognize the way, well, first of all, they're a base nickel defense. Second of all, they recognize how effective Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews are. So if they went 4-3 and we ended up with Likely or Andrews matched up against their will linebacker or their hybrid Sam, it's a huge edge for us. They're going to play their nickel against 21 personnel. Can we run the football against their nickel out of 21? Can we get things accomplished in the pass? I don't know. My suspicion is this is what we're going to get. Nickel group rolled into the box and a one high safety alignment. And again, attack horizontally. Because these guys, the corners, are not going to be up on the line of scrimmage on a rundown situation. They'll be up there maybe on 3rd and 6. They might be playing press man. But they will not be there on a rundown situation to force. The horizontal threats, the horizontal concepts, in my opinion, will be there. The corner is responding to the potential of Isaiah Likely's route. Doesn't see the 2 linemen, obviously, getting out to the edge. It's a great concept. Yeah, I mean, maybe we don't get as much yards if it's someone else catching the screen besides Zay Flowers because he makes 1 or 2 people miss. But the point is 21 personnel could elicit a one high safety structure against them, and I think we have even more opportunities to attack horizontally. I would look for jet sweep and jet dive out of 21 personnel pretty much more than anything. An example of how we can get the corner out of 21 personnel, I'm sorry, on QB power read, this is actually 12 personnel. So we've got an unbalanced offensive lineman, a tight end, and a tight end. So we have created an additional player into the boundary, really forced their hand. Look at how they've, let me get to the end zone angle here so you can see it. They identify it. You can see their players shift over. Why? Because we've got Andrews and a left guard, and then guard, right tackle, left tackle, kicked over. This is the unbalanced side. I'm going to go back to the all-22. I think Lamar misreads this possibly, or maybe he's told to keep it. But even if they stay in their nickel defense, we can still manipulate them with these unbalanced looks. They identified it. I think this should be a give. I mean, look at what we've got into the boundary. If we give this, if we're reading the defensive end, you never know what Lamar was told. I'm talking about that defensive end right there. It's quarterback power read. So, I mean, Justice Hill leading the way. Zay behind him to the edge. By my math, we've got a 4-on-4 at minimum, maybe even a 4-on-3. Would have loved to seen that be a give. I think, we're giving them trouble with the run game anyway. Don't get me wrong. But that's a play, especially into the boundary against their nickel, that I think we can get things accomplished. There's the read man. Tell me what you think the read should be. I get it. Some people are going to say, oh, Matt Milano's going to blow that up. Well, likely is assigned to block him, number one. Number two, Justice Hill is designed to lead to the outside. Looks like a good setup for me. Something that we could use against them early and then possibly go with that action and then run a play action off of it. Why? There's no pressure on Lamar. They know, everybody knows at this point, that this setup is a setup for quarterback power read. So this guy is either going to step up field, take away the give, step down violently to deal with quarterback power, or half-man surf it, slow play it, whatever you want to call it here. And I think it just creates an opportunity for Lamar to throw the football. The Bills are a very disciplined defense. They have a system. They believe in that system. I think one of the ways we're going to attack them is horizontally. Final play that I'll show you. Henry, could he have a good game running downhill behind Pat Ricard? I mean, come on. Like, even if you stop Derrick Henry, no matter who you are, for 2.5, 3 quarters, there's the potential for him to bust one eventually. He's just that good. He's a Hall of Fame caliber running back. These precepts, I think, are ways for us to gain a half-man advantage, maybe create a little bit more space for some of our athletes if we cause them horizontal conflict, motion or flow that goes one way, and then the actual play concept that comes back against the green. I've done a couple of these that have turned out to be a little bit longer than I wanted them to, than I intended them to. This one ended up being 25 minutes. It's always like +5 or +7, so my apologies for that. If you do enjoy it, please let me know in the comment section, because I understand some people like longer content. My intention by breaking the previews up was so I didn't create one gigantic file, first of all, and second of all, piece of content that was an hour and 20, hour and 30 minutes. So these are abbreviated from my opinion or my perspective. I will have another one coming out in the next, hopefully 12 to 14 hours about the Ravens option game and the way that the Bills have defended option in the past, number one. I'm also going to focus a significant amount of film on their first meeting with the New England Patriots this year that they were able to win 24-21. I appreciate you guys' time, man. Let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. Some of the concepts that I've brought up that threaten horizontally in one direction and could possibly exploit things in the other. I appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study look at the Ravens visiting the Buffalo Bills in the AFC divisional round, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.